Good day everyone, so hope you're all doing really well. In today's video we're going to discuss the new UGC or user generated content mode that is coming to Genshin, and in the later parts of the video we'll talk about the current correlation in the Genshin endgame content and why that's a problem. So for those of you that are not aware, Genshin is getting a UGC mode roughly around 6.1, I don't know, I've got no confirmation on that, but in the developer post that the devs kind of put out, we are told that we can configure enemy lineups, we can change the clothes of characters, you can build certain platforms. It's kind of like a sandbox environment that the devs are going to give the community, and obviously you can then create all sorts of fun game modes that you can then share with other players. This has been something that we've seen in the past where they gave you the ability to edit maps and publish it, like with the beat maps currently in Genshin. You can also publish those things, you can publish Serenity Pods. So I think Genshin is just kind of like upping the ante with this, and in a certain sense it's good for the longevity of the game, because the more user generated content there is, the more you can keep on playing the game even if you are bored with the main or the traditional content that the devs put out. However, and me being me, I will always have to play devil's advocate on this, but I do think that the UGC, whilst being an upfront cost to the Hoyo developers, is definitely a lazy way for them in order to like not put in as much effort towards events in the future, because what they can do is they can just like snag one of the UGC events, put in a couple of primo gems to it, and there you go, there is one of the events like already like done for you. You can just get a bunch of junior devs to refine it, put like a little bit of a cute interface, one of the junior artists to put like a little bit of like, what do you call it, art in game, a splash screen or whatever, and hey, it just means from Hoyo's perspective they can take these devs, move them towards working on Genshin Impact Part 2, or maybe on some of their other titles. So I think it's definitely part of their cost like cutting or like a cost saving strategy, and certainly the ability, if you give people UGC content, you can now as a company as well experiment with things like the inclusion of AI into your gaming, because you've got the sandbox environment and you can literally do live testing before you bring it out, before you bring out a more refined and polished game or other product that incorporates it. So this definitely for me speaks a lot about experimentation and the direction where Genshin is going to head into the future. But in a certain sense, I don't like the fact that the developers aren't listening to us, because it feels like instead of giving you meaningful end game, giving you proper quality of life, it's almost like the higher ups are going to say, but listen, we're giving you all of these amazing game modes and players should be happy. I mean, you don't need artifacts. I mean, you can play a bit of TCG, a bit of music in our game, check out this user generated content, and look, it's not the argument I'm trying to make. I'm just saying, if I had to, put myself in the hat of some of these completely out of touch boomers that typically run these companies, this is the sort of thing that they would be saying, even if the developers themselves don't quite agree. But I've definitely been part of organizations where what you think is logical, what we as players think is logical, what the customer, what the workers think is logical, is not what the higher ups say. And I've been part of, like, I wouldn't say the victim, but of literally a case in my organization as well, where you were just told, well, we're going to cancel that one thing that everyone wanted, and this is now the new direction we're going to head in. And I think that is the same type of vibes that I'm getting here. And I'm also thinking that from a more strategic perspective, Oyo has seen the introduction of things like Roblox and some of these other kind of like user-generated content modes, and there's definitely a very, very strong potential in there. And if you can get a lot of kids then on this platform, I mean, especially like we're talking not about like American kids, but like Chinese kids and like in Asian countries, man, that's going to be such a strong stranglehold. And obviously the monetization potential with UGC content is really kind of infinite. I mean, you can commission different artists or different players. You can even have like money sharing schemes where people can buy certain content that other players have published or created. I mean, Hoyo could potentially make this into an absolute gold mine, but Look, that's enough speculation. Let's get to the second part of this video, and that is the correlation in in-game content. And in a certain sense, this is kind of what I think will relate in a certain sense to the first part of why Hoyo wants to put UGC content. But currently what we see in Genshin is that you get the formula of Hoyo giving you a specific banner unit. You need to buy or pull for this unit and a couple of other units that release in close proximity to them so that you can get meaningful teams, and effectively the bosses are also then tailored to give you a massive advantage if you do pull for the current lineup. And the problem I have with this is not that Genshin is engaging in a money practice like this, but that in their Stygian Onslaught, and just now you're seeing now the latest Spiral Abyss, but in the previous Abyss that we've now had for the last two like month as well, you've seen the Papilla in it again. You see the Papilla in the Stygian Onslaught. You almost see that in a lot of the endgame modes, if you don't have the specific team, you're not as well off, and that is a problem to me because you're being sold forced necessity, you're being sold team complements, which is just an aggressive form of a monetization strategy, and your end game content is drying up like significantly, and that is why a lot of players might kind of just quit the game. And this is why I put the whole UCG thing in the beginning. I think Hoyo's answer to this is to try then to give the community the tools so that they can focus on pushing aggressive monetization towards the whales, but then everyone else will then stick with the game and the platform by playing the alternative content, which is far easier to curate and to build because users will naturally, like with the UGC content, find what they like most and then follow certain creators or like whatever content creators on that. So from that perspective, I think this is Hoyo's like strategy in trying to solve like balancing different player interest as well as being able to keep monetization. So this is it's kind of a thing that I don't like because it's not entirely player first. It's almost like saying in the UGC you're going to be the slaves that, you know, if you want your own content, if you don't want the curated experience buying the characters we want you to buy for our Stygian Onslaught, and that same characters will be viable in the Abyss and in the Imaginarium Theatre, then you will work for us by creating content that we can then utilize and monetize potentially in the future, which I find, if I'm going to be really, really cynical now, to be very insidious from a gacha company. Look, from a corporate perspective, I think it's brilliant if I put my investor hat on, but from a player perspective, you can definitely see what Hoyo is doing. And obviously, if you look at a game like Honkai Star Rail and the Honkai Impact Third, the same form of aggressive monetization of forced necessity and buying multiple team complements, which is draining on your wallets. In other words, you need multiple characters that will work well together, otherwise they don't stand a chance or they're not going to be as effective in the in-game content. That's kind of like the strategy that the devs are doing, and it's just it really kind of sucks. So this is my assessment. Currently Genshin is on a high monetization push like all of the other gacha games. They give us endgame content whilst on the surface seeming diverse. You know, Stygian Onslaught for the real battle hardened whales, the Spiral Abyss as just a once-off event, the Imaginarium Theatre to test account diversity. What you actually find with all of the Abyss blessings and with the current lineup of rosters in the Stygian Onslaught is just that the game itself is still devolving to giving you fairly little content because of the correlation in the types of enemies that you see, in the fact that you still just have a lot of single target DPS that have to dish out a lot of damage, and that the only way to make a meaningful impact or dent on that is to spend. So that is kind of my worry with the end game, and also why I think Hoyo is using the UGC to solve this problem for the casual audience as well. Any case, hopefully that wasn't too complicated. Let me know what you think. I know it was a bit all over, but yeah, those are some of my thoughts. And have a lovely day. Thank you, everyone.